Okay, girls. We're going to roll through this fast so that we can do lots of review. Okay? We've got your lesson 30. Oops. Is that the wrong one? No, it just didn't say. And it should. Right? Yeah, that's the right one. All righty. Are we ready? So I'll give coins for during lesson. And then when we get to review, we won't do coins because there's just way too many questions. We'll run out of points. It's a question every time, right? All right. So this last little bit, this very quick short lesson is on the immune system. The immune system is extremely complicated and we are just touching the surface. You can obviously spend years just studying the immune system. That's what immunologists do, right? So very, very complicated. So we're just going to touch the surface. So first thing we're going to talk about is innate immune system. So innate immunity is this the innate immune system is made of defenses against infection that can be activated immediately once a pathogen attacks. What's a pathogen? Do you know? Anything that causes disease is a pathogen. The innate immune system is essentially made up of barriers that aim to keep, viruses, bacteria, parasites, and other foreign particles out of your body or limit their ability to spread and move throughout the body. Do you remember when we talked about instinct being like an innate behavior? You don't have to be exposed to a stimulus to know how to react to it. That's exactly how the innate immune system works. You don't have to have been exposed to that pathogen or disease causing agent before your body already knows what to do when it comes in contact with it, even if it's never seen it before. So the innate immune system includes what kind of barriers do you suppose? It's going to be your physical barriers. What's an example of like a physical barrier? What can you think of? Like your skin, right? If you didn't like if you have a cut and it's open, it can get infected, right? Because your skin's not covering it. So your skin, your mucus, eyelashes, things like that are physical barriers. Um, and what kind of mechanisms? We're looking for defense mechanisms and general something response. This is general immune response. This is just the way your body is going to react in general when it sees anything that doesn't belong. Okay. So, not targeted towards a specific pathogen, but it just sort of in general. So, here are examples of physical barriers we talked about. Your skin's waterproof and it helps maintain a particular pH. The function of pH in the GI tract. Okay. Your stomach is full of acid, right? The main reason it's full of acid is to destroy bacteria and things that get in there that don't belong. A nice sort of side effect to that is that it'll help break down your food. But it's there, that acid is there to kill stuff that doesn't belong inside your body. Because when you think about it, your digestive system is open to the world, right? You could let's say you have rotten food on your counter. You can touch the rotten food on your counter. Is it going to make you sick by touching it with your hand? No, but if you eat it, now you've brought it into your body. So your digestive system is a little exposed in certain ways. So it has lots of defense mechanisms. Your respiratory tract. So your respiratory tract is full of mucus. It's full of little cilia, little finger-like things that catch stuff. You ever worked in the yard or been out like when your parents are maybe mowing the lawn and then you come inside and blow your nose and there's like dirt in the tissue? You ever done that? Or been spray painting and blowing your nose and seeing like paint? Because it gets caught in that top part of your respiratory system in your nose and your sinuses. Your nasopharynx, which is what we're just talking about, all up in here, right into your throat, your nose into your throat, all of that is a good physical barrier. Also cilia, which are those little tiny hairs, which are inside your respiratory tract, they're inside your digestive tract. You have them in your nose, you have them everywhere. Eyelashes. What's the purpose of eyelashes? Why do we have them? To keep things out of your eyes. You ever looked at a cow's eyelashes? They have big, long eyelashes, like to die for. Like better than any falsies we have on the market. Why do you suppose cows have such long eyelashes? What's always buzzing around cows? Flies, right? Flies. Helps keep the flies out. That's also why they swish their tails around, right? Other body hair. Body hair helps keep, well, obviously on your head, it'll keep you warm. That's a lot of body hair. That's kind of too much for me. You see him? My word. Some people are just very hairy people. So, defense mechanisms. When you're sick, do you get extra snotty? Yeah, you get lots of mucus. Do you know that mucus can get plugged up in your nose? It can make a big plug, and then it gets hard to breathe, and you need help getting it out. That's why things like neti pots are really good. There's certain medications like guaifenesin that'll thin your mucus so that it's easier to blow out of your head. But if it gets stuck, you get into this type of situation. So we'll watch that in a second. So you've got secretions as part of your defense mechanisms, things like mucus, which we just talked about, bile. Even though its main purpose is to emulsify fats that you eat, it can also help with some defense mechanism. There's our gastric acid that we talked about, stomach acid. Saliva, although it helps with digestion, it also has some immune purposes. Tears obviously keep your eyes wet and lubricated, but they also keep yuck out of your eyes. You ever been outside when it's dusty and your eyes tear up, you make more tears because your eyes are trying to wash stuff out, right? Sweat, although that's main purpose is to cool you down, it can also wash some stuff off the surface of your skin. This is what happens if you get a really big booger that you can't get out. That's a nasal speculum they're using to reach up in there and grab it. I don't know how he doesn't sneeze. I'm sure they've numbed him with some spray. Otherwise, you'd be sneezing your head off. Somebody stuck something up your nose like that. It's worse than a COVID test. Yeah.
And why was that comfortable?
You get a big enough sinus infection, you don't rinse it out.
Better than eyes are watering.
Yeah.
Okay.
So his eyes are watering because those nerves up in there, it's called the lacrimal reflex. That was one way that like nurses could test that they did a COVID test, right? The early COVID test, you had to go way up in your nose. Did you ever have to do one of those? Not just here, you had to go way up deep in your nose. And if the patient's eyes teared, the nurse knew they got deep enough in the nose because that's a lacrimal reflex. It'll make you tear up immediately. Okay, so general immune response. What's this? So this is like an inflammatory response. It actively brings immune cells to the site of infection by increasing blood flow to the area. It's part your complement immune response, and it marks pathogens for destruction, makes holes in the cell membranes of the pathogens. So if you have an infection, like this person looks like they're having like some infected toes, something maybe their toenail got cut wrong and they got an infection. You ever had a spot where you've got infection that gets like warm, red, swollen? That's a general immune response. That's your body like bringing all the cells, all the blood and blood cells to that area so that your immune system can respond to whatever is causing the infection. And you've got certain cells that will come in and find the pathogen and they will like, it's like they put a little flag on it. This one, because some of those cells' job it is to find the pathogen and mark it, and then you've got others that come in and kill the pathogen. So here are some of your types of cells and internal defenses. So anything that engulfs a pathogen, they're called macrophages. They're very big, okay, and they will basically eat your pathogen. It's called phagocytosis when that happens. So your cell will be bobbing along and then it turns itself into a Pac-Man and it just eats. Remember how amoebas eat? It's the same process. It's phagocytosis. You got interferons, and those are proteins secreted by infected cells that signal neighboring cells to defend themselves. If one cell is being attacked, it'll send out a message to the cells around it that says, hey, get ready. There's an attack coming your way. They're in my house. They're coming to your house, right? Then you have mast cells, and these hold histamines that cause blood vessels to dilate. They bring extra blood, which causes swelling in the tissues. It attract phagocytes to come and help deal with the infection. So if you've ever had like maybe you've had your sinuses swell up, for example, but you don't have a lot of mucus going on, but you still can't breathe because your sinus tissues are all puffy. That's what's going on here is mast cells. Interestingly, some of the people who got very sick with COVID or who died from COVID, this was part of the problem. Their mast cell activation went haywire. So they produced way too much histamine, which can be bad, obviously. You don't want too much of anything or too little of anything. You want the right amount, right? So that was part of it. Mast cell, they can get out of hand. You've also got natural killer cells, and they destroy infected or cancerous cells. So these guys' job is to do the killing. They aren't necessarily the ones that find the bad cell. They may there are other cells that will like I said, find and tag the invader. And then these cells will do the actual killing. And then you've got inflammatory response, which is your pain and swelling that occurs upon injury or infection. You ever had like a hangnail and you get a swollen spot on your finger? You ever had that? I've had that happen many times before. It gets very hot, gets very swollen, it gets very red, and that's an inflammatory response. So you've got swelling and pain there, and the pain is there because the swelling causes some of the pain, but it also it's kind of important because it tells you to leave that part of your body alone because it's they're working on healing it. All right, so let's talk about now acquired immunity. That was all innate immunity, right? That's stuff that you are born with, that your body doesn't have to be exposed to the pathogen before, it just knows what to do. So, acquired or adaptive immunity is a defense response that's enhanced by previous exposure to a pathogen. This is why, if you've had a particular cold or a particular flu, which is a virus, if you've had that before, you won't get infected with it again, even if you're exposed to it, because your body already recognizes it and knows how to respond. Like it's identified that enemy, so you don't have to, the time it takes to build the defense mechanism to get that virus under control or make it so it stops replicating, because remember, we can't kill viruses, but we can make them so they don't replicate anymore. The time that takes is while you're sick. When your body has already been exposed to it and it recognizes it, it can roll out the defense mechanism right away, and then you don't get all that time being sick. So acquired immunity is immunity you develop over your lifetime. It can come from a vaccine, exposure to an infection or a disease, or another person's antibodies. So a vaccine, what's the purpose of a vaccine? It's usually a weakened virus that's to the point where it can't really replicate, but you put it in your body and your immune system sees it and goes, all right, I need to develop the right weapons to kill or to fight this particular virus. So because you have developed that already, if you're ever exposed to, say, polio or whatever, your body will know immediately how to respond and you won't get sick, because the sick is the time it takes to build the defense mechanism, to build the right weapon. If you've been exposed to it before, like we said, if you've had a particular cold, then you won't get that cold again. Where do you think another person's antibodies are going to come into play? Where would that happen? How would that happen? How would another person's antibodies get into you? Yes. You know? A lot of this comes from this one in particular, breastfeeding babies. Mothers pass antibodies to their babies through milk. So a breastfeeding baby has some level of immune protection from certain pathogens because the baby is getting those antibodies from their mother. Allergies. Either of you get allergies at all? No allergies for you? Do you get allergies, Everly? No, nothing, not even like in the pollen doesn't bother you? Wow, you're lucky. I have lots of allergies. So, allergies is an exaggerated response to an antigen, and it can trigger a mast cell to elicit an inflammatory response. Remember, we said those mast cells can get out of hand and it causes problems, right? So, here's how what allergies are and how allergies work.
The best part.
Of course, we're going to get, at least it's not a political commercial.
No sugar, great taste, guaranteed.
We're used to this matchup
Oh, no, I said at least not. Here it is.
versus the rest of us.
Yeah.
Here.
So, how do allergies occur? Estimated to affect. Allergies are one of the most common causes of illness, estimated to affect up to 1 in 5 people, and they are becoming more common around the world. Allergy occurs when our body becomes sensitive to a substance called an allergen that is harmless to most people. For example, common allergens include pollen, which causes hay fever, certain foods, such as nuts, milk, and eggs, insect bites, such as bee and wasp stings, dust mites, molds, animal fur, some medicines, and certain materials, such as latex. So, how do allergies occur? The immune system is how our body detects, remembers, and eliminates foreign material that is harmful to the body, such as viruses and bacteria, and allergens are treated in the same way. When first exposed to an allergen, the immune system creates a type of protein called IgE antibody that is able to uniquely recognize that allergen. After this exposure, the antibodies lie in wait on a type of immune cell called mast cells. If the allergen is encountered again, it causes an allergic reaction. The allergen binds to the antibodies, triggering the mast cells to release their contents, including chemical messengers such as histamine. These have a range of effects on the body. Common symptoms triggered by this reaction include itchy skin, rash or swelling, sneezing and runny nose, inflammation and congestion around the nose and eyes, cough and wheeze, diarrhea or feeling sick. These symptoms might be mild and occur over a period of time, but allergic reactions can also happen straight away. For some types of allergies, reactions can be severe and life-threatening, called anaphylaxis. In anaphylaxis, an extreme reaction of the immune system leads the blood vessels to widen and become leaky, dangerously lowering blood pressure. The eyelids, lips, or throat can swell up, and the airways can tighten, leading to difficulty breathing. Other effects may include anxiety, tummy cramps, vomiting, diarrhea, drowsiness, and loss of consciousness. Anaphylaxis is a medical emergency that can be fatal if not treated promptly, so it's important to seek help immediately. Some people who have had an anaphylactic reaction before might carry an adrenaline auto-injector pen prescribed by their
That's an
doctor.
EpiPen.
This can be used
You've ever heard of that
whilst awaiting
before?
further medical help and is easy to use with the instructions on the side. It is important to go to hospital, even if you feel better, for a period of observation in case the symptoms return. Here, further supportive treatments and medicines can be given if required. How are allergies diagnosed? When and where symptoms occur can provide clues. If these follow exposure to a particular allergen, as well as symptom history, family history is also relevant, as some families have a genetic tendency to develop allergic diseases called atopy. Allergy testing is also sometimes used to investigate further or confirm an allergy. These include blood tests for total and specific IgE antibodies and skin prick or patch testing, where tiny amounts of different allergens are introduced to the skin in a safe way to see if the skin reacts. If an allergy is diagnosed, there are many ways of reducing its impact. Firstly, it is important to try to avoid the allergen as much as possible. Medications are also available to help with symptoms. Antihistamines and steroids directly dampen down the allergic response. Other medications can provide symptom relief, such as skin creams or decongestants. If an adrenaline pen is prescribed, it should be carried at all times, as it's not always possible to avoid allergens. It's also important that allergies are recorded on your medical records. Some allergies can also be cured through immunotherapy. This involves being exposed to a tiny amount of allergen in a safe and controlled way and giving larger and larger doses over time so that the body gradually becomes desensitized to it. Allergies are very common in childhood and can be lifelong, though for many, allergies fade as they get older. While allergies can be disruptive and impact on quality of life, they can usually be managed through allergen avoidance, treatment, and preparation. It is important for everyone, family and friends, and wider society to be mindful of allergies and the risks they pose to some people. We hope this health sketch has been useful for you and those around you.
Do you know the most common food allergens? So it's egg, nut, peanut, tree nut, wheat, soy, dairy, fish, shellfish. That's what people are most likely to be allergic to. But you can be allergic to anything with a protein in it. You can be allergic to apples. You could be allergic to rice, even though those are less common. Okay. But it can happen. Do you know somebody with an EpiPen? If I know anybody, you do now. I have an EpiPen for wasp stings. If a yellow jacket gets me, I could, because I have yet to have an anaphylactic response, but I had a very severe localized response the last time I got stung. I stepped on one. It got the bottom of my foot, and the immune response was really, really huge and really, really painful and really, really bad. And I have permanent nerve damage on the bottom of my foot where I got stung. So now I have an EpiPen because if you react that badly, then if you get exposed to the allergen again, chances are it could be anaphylactic and your throat closes up and you can't breathe. And that's not good. So now we're going to talk about autoimmune diseases. Sometimes the immune system turns against certain molecules that naturally occur in your body and healthy cells. So lupus is an example. And it works against DNA histones and breaking down cells. Rheumatoid arthritis is another example. It works against your cartilage. So this is basically your immune system is getting the wrong coding. And your immune system doesn't recognize your own body as harmless. It sees parts of your body as something to attack. So your body tries to attack itself all the time. So here is a list of them. Very small list, but they're all clickable. So examples would be, well, let me just say the exact cause is unknown. One theory is that some microorganisms, such as bacteria, viruses, or drugs, may trigger changes that confuse the immune system. And this may happen more often in people who have genes that make them prone to autoimmune disorders. So it can result in destruction of body tissue, abnormal growth of an organ, changes in organ function. Autoimmune disorders may affect one or more organ tissue types. Areas often affected include blood vessels, connective tissues, endocrine glands like the thyroid or pancreas, joints, muscles, red blood cells, and skin. Where it says viruses, interestingly, about a year ago, I think it is, they came out with a study that made a correlation between lupus and Epstein-Barr virus. Epstein-Barr virus can cause like mononucleosis, I think, but it's an infection that you get, makes you feel crappy, you're sick for a while. But they have found a correlation where like a very high percentage of people that have a strong titer for Epstein-Barr, which means you draw it and you draw the blood and you check and you say, yes, you have a very strong immune response to this, also had lupus, or people with lupus had that basically. So not everybody, but it seemed to be a good correlation. All right, now they call lupus the great imitator. Lupus is an interesting one to study because a lot of these autoimmune disorders are very specific. Like rheumatoid arthritis affects your cartilage, so it affects your joints. Scleroderma affects your skin and other connective tissues. Type 1 diabetes obviously impacts your pancreas, your blood sugar, but lupus can look like anything because it's systemic. So, and I know because I live with it, but this guy gives a really entertaining overview of the different types of lupus, and this will be our last video, and then we'll do our exam review, okay?
I'm used to this
Yeah.
matchup.
I am so tired of political commercials. Here we go.
Everybody knows my absolute love and appreciation and respect for those dealing with chronic illness. So this has been brought to my attention. Lupus, great imitator, has been brought to me. So I'm going to deliver it to those who don't know much about lupus. 5 things to know about those dealing with lupus. Number 1, Lupus has been called the great imitator because it looks like everything else and it's almost the most difficult to diagnose. Lupus sometimes look like exhaustion. Lupus sometimes look like a cold, flu symptoms, a sickness, a fever. Anything that you can name that can be wrong with a person at one time, lupus can look like that. So it takes to diagnose because doctors exactly what they're looking for. So if you meet a person or you know a person that say they feel like this thing, understand. They may be only telling you what they can describe. So when they go to the doctor and say, you know what, I found out that I've been diagnosed with lupus, don't look at them awkwardly. Don't say, well, you don't look like you got lupus. We don't know what lupus look like. Lupus look like the person that got lupus. Lupus can look like this to me, and lupus can look like that to you. Either or, that person has been diagnosed. So have the C word. Compassion. Number 2, where does lupus come from? Watch me tell you. Lupus happens when your body produces antibodies. Now, antibodies usually is a good thing, but the antibodies start eating the body itself and start eating your organs, and it cannot be cured. It cannot be stopped. Just imagine your body saying it's hungry, and you fed your body, but then you don't want to eat, but then your body start eating itself because your body is hungry, and your body don't stop eating itself. Your body produces great things, but those great things, because they don't know what they're supposed to do anymore, they turn on your body, which is you, and it's an incurable disease. You can treat it, but there's no cure for it yet. And don't be confused. Don't say, because I'm a healthy man or I'm a woman or from this country, that you can't get lupus. Lupus can affect anybody, but it's most likely to affect someone if it's already in your family or there's a history of it. So please get yourself checked, keep up on your medical records, and know what's going on with the family around you and distance from you. Number 3, according to statistics, women are most likely to get lupus, and it's more dominant in those of color. Again, lupus has no bounds. It don't discriminate. It attacks everybody. But women, for some reason, get lupus more than men get lupus. And because of some studies, some stuff I read, I Googled it. I even walked into a library today. Most women, Haitian, Black American, Hawaiian, Mexican, most likely will get lupus more than white, traditionally white women. So when I say traditionally white women, I'm talking about like white, like clear. I'm talking about like windshield white women.
Windshield white?
In Florida, but that's a whole different.
Not white women from Florida. That's funny.
Oh my God, no. Don't be shocked when you find out that more women have lupus than men. It's statistics speaking. I can only go by what I read and what I study. If you know something different, drop it in the comments and educate everybody. Thank you. Number 4, there are 4 different types of lupus. Let's lightly break them down. You got systemic lupus, which is very heart-jerking to me, which affects the major organs in the body, the heart, the lung, the kidney, and the brain. Then you got cutaneous lupus. That's the lupus that affects the skin. So when you see somebody that say they have lupus and their skin pigmentation begins to change, or they're trying to wear makeup and things that still look like they used to look, they're probably dealing with that form of lupus. Then you got this tricky lupus. It's a drug-induced lupus. That comes from taking too many medications. And that is really like similar to systemic lupus, not completely, but it subsides if you stop using as much medication. So this one can kind of be controlled, in my opinion, the best. Drug-induced lupus. And to me, this is the most gut-wrenching form of lupus. It's the neonatal lupus. This is the lupus that's passed down to the fetus, so when the baby is born, some of the organs don't work right. But by the grace of God, and because the bodies are super dope, the baby will grow out of it with no lasting effect from it. Neonatal lupus. Study what lupus is, people. Number 5. Educate, learn. Although a lot of diseases that I talk about may be difficult for you to understand or study, or you may know somebody that's dealing with the disease and you're just like, you can't handle it, I would definitely encourage everyone that can read and comprehend to read up on these chronic illnesses and these diseases so you can better understand and you can better appreciate those dealing with these things, and you can have more compassion what they're trying to do to live a normal life. If there was anything I missed, please be polite, put it in the comment.
That's pretty much where he ends.
Make me more aware.
All right. So now we're going to take a minute here. I'm going to switch my screen over so that when you want to look at your review packet, you can see it up here. Oh, does it not open? I got to open it first. That would help. All right, let's see. Here we go. Oops, did it not go? Oops, you go away. Thank you, sir. Make sure that we're sharing the right one. Yep. There we go. I think. Wait, why is it being weird? There we go. All right, now make this little guy small. Stuff him up here. Are we ready? Got your packets? Emerson's got her packet. You got your packet, Everly? Or are you going to just try and answer them from memory? That'll work too. All right. So if it just has the lab rats, we'll skip it. But if it has this, it's for both, right? All right. Common refrain these days. Science is settled. Why is science never settled? Who can give me one? What's number one? Science does not exist in a binary state, right? It's never like settled or unsettled. What's number two? This is the one that says good understanding in one area does not, or poor understanding in one area does not negate good understanding in another area. You have varying levels of understanding of different aspects of science. And what's the third one? This is the easy one. Science is about narrowing uncertainty, not absolute proofs, right? Now remember, all of these answers, the answers are all in your resources. So if it's too, like if you're still filling it out, Emerson, when you get home, you can go to your resources folder, look under your finals and midterms, and under your finals, you'll find all these answers. You can see them all, okay? So that'll help you study. But you definitely want to know everything in this packet. All right, scientific theory versus scientific law. Who can tell me? Yeah, what you got? Yes, law is what? Theory is why. Very good. And what's the difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes? Do you remember? Prokaryotes have no membrane-bound nucleus. Their DNA is circular and floats around in the cytoplasm. Eukaryotes have a membrane-bound nucleus, which holds their DNA, right? Right. All right. Your independent variable is what? It's what you change. What's your dependent variable? It's what changes based upon what you've done or what you observe changing. And your controlled variable is what you keep the same. Very good. Excellent. What's 1 gram equal to? How many kilograms? It's going to be 0.001. Be sure you understand how to do your metric conversions. The statement, the mouse weighs 7 grams. What do we call that kind of a statement? That is an observation. Taking advantage of naturally occurring variations in organisms to pass wanted traits to their offspring. What do we call that? That is selective breeding, right? All right, what is the correct order for organization of life? We have molecules, tissues, organ systems, cells, atoms. Which comes first? Molecules, then what? So, I'm sorry, atoms, then molecules, then cells, then tissues, then organ systems, then organism, right? In that order. Now, on your exam, you may not have all of these. It may start in a different place and end in a different place. It may not start with atoms and end with organisms. It might start with cells and end with systems, but be sure you know that the order is always the same, right? A hypothesis is an idea that can be tested. It cannot be proved or disproved. In order, that should say for, I always miss that for some reason. I keep copying and pasting it. In order for a hypothesis to be considered, it must be what? And repeatable or what? What are your options? Supported, rejected, or the other way around, rejected and supported. One or the other, right? An observation is made using using your senses, like the mouse is 7 grams. You saw that when you measured it. You used your eyes, you read your tool. What is based on prior knowledge and experience? What do we call that? If a mouse is furry and you believe that's probably because it's for insulation, because other animals that have fur use it for insulation. That's an inference, right? An inference. All right, now, what goes here? 10 times larger than your unit is deca. 10 times smaller than your unit is deci. 10 times 10 or 100 times larger than your unit is hecto. 10 times smaller or 100 times smaller centi. And then you have kilo and milli. What's the this is unit would go here. What's the mnemonic for that? Do you remember the memory device? King Henry died unusually drinking chocolate milk. Remember? KHDU, unit, DCM. King Henry died unusually drinking chocolate milk. All right, if we're looking at this, this is our taxonomic ranking, right? We start with domain. This one had to do with King Philip, not King Henry. Do you remember it? What did King Philip do? King Philip came over for good spaghetti or for good soup. All right. So that being the case, domain, what's K for? Kingdom, right. We had King Philip. What's the eight, what would number 8 be then? Phylum, right? Came is going to be King Philip came. Class. What's over? It's an O. Order. What's for going to be? Family. What's good going to be? Genus. And then species. All right, when you have your domain eukarya, you've got 4 main things. Now, I will tell you on your exam, it's going to show you 13, and it's going to give you that one. All right, and then you're going to have to know the others based on whether they're autotrophic or heterotrophic and what their role is in an ecosystem. So 13 is protista. All right, now what's 14 going to be? There's a mushroom there, so that gives you a hint. That is fungi. And remember, fungi is autotrophic or heterotrophic? Does it make its own food or does it have to eat other things? It's heterotrophic, right? And it's a decomposer. All right, what's 15 going to be? Plantae, is that autotrophic or heterotrophic? Autotrophic, plants make their own food, and it's a producer. All right, and the last one, what's the last one? It's a cow. What's the last one going to be? Animalia, heterotrophic, consumer, right? All right. What would be the definition of an approach to seek knowledge that involves forming and testing a hypothesis in a logical, systematic way? That's going to be your scientific method. What is a trait that helps organisms survive and reproduce? What do we call those? An adaptation. And what is Darwin's idea of how evolution occurs? What's the term? It's 2 words. You know it. Darwin's idea. What was Darwin's idea? Natural selection, right? Right. Nature selects, whereas with selective breeding, humans do the selecting, right? Something's always selecting. All right, and what are the building blocks of proteins? Amino acids. All right, a group of different species that live together in a defined area. What do we call that? Different species that live together. We call that a community. And what do we call it when it's a group of the same species that live together? That's a population. So you have a population of ladybugs in your garden, but the ladybugs, the toads, the aphids, the caterpillars, and the plants, that's all a community, right? What do we call a structure like an appendix in humans that we don't need? We no longer need it. It's a evolutionarily, it's something we used in the past, but we've evolved to no longer need it. That's a vestigial structure. Another example would be like wisdom teeth, for example. You don't really need those. In the past, you probably did, but not now. Stem cells can differentiate into any type of cell. What's that word for that? If you can differentiate into other types of cells. Do you remember we talked about it with our little flatworms? That's totipotent. All right, now the total amount of living tissue at each trophic level in an ecosystem, we do it like this, right? We show all the vegetation at the bottom, and then we show the herbivores, and then we show the carnivores, and then we show the big apex predators at the apex of the triangle. We call that a biomass pyramid, right? It's all the energy as it works its way up, right? The maximum number of organisms of a particular species that can be supported by the environment is called it's 2 words, carrying capacity. The first organisms to repopulate a deforested area, what do we call those? Like if there's a fire or a bunch of trees are cut down, and then the first organisms that come in and start to repopulate, that's called a pioneer species. What's a keystone species? Do you remember what that is? A keystone species is a species where, like, if that species is gone, the entire ecosystem is going to suffer because that species is needed to maintain a balance. Like the beaver was a good example. We talked about the beaver being a keystone species. So be careful when you read this question on your exam. It might be a true or false, and it might have the word keystone species instead of pioneer species. So you need to be sure that you're paying attention. All right, now this is just lab rats. So we will beep, 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 beep. And this is just lab rats. So now we're back to you. Boop. So why is sexual reproduction a source of genetic variation? Why is that so important that we get genetic variation? So it's every offspring is unique, right? So sexual reproduction provides genetic, bless you, diversity, because the sperm and egg that are produced contain different combinations of genes than the parent organism. Recombination and crossing over provide even greater opportunity for variation. Remember that animals that reproduce, or organisms, not just animals, but organisms that reproduce asexually are producing genetically identical offspring, right? So that can be great until something in the environment changes. And if those offspring are no longer best adapted to that environment, that entire species could get wiped out. Whereas with sexual reproduction, there are likely to be some offspring that are better adapted than others, and that can keep the species going. Some are going to be less well adapted and they're going to die, but they won't survive to reproduce. Only the ones that are best adapted will, which is natural selection. So how are selective breeding and natural selection similar, and how are they different? So we talked about this just a minute ago. They both cause changes in your population of animals and plants, but the difference in the two is that natural selection happens naturally. Nature is the selector. Selective breeding only occurs when humans intervene. So for this reason, selective breeding is sometimes called artificial selection because humans are doing the selecting. That's how we get different breeds of dogs, right? Through selective breeding. How could you determine if organisms shared a recent common ancestor? What could you do? If I presented you with like 2 organisms, Everly, how could you tell if they had a recent ancestor? You know? So you could use fossil evidence, comparative anatomy with homologous structures, comparative embryology, and comparative DNA sequences. The movement of water across a selectively permeable membrane is called what? What's it called when water passes through a selectively permeable membrane? Osmosis. The process by which organisms keep their internal conditions relatively stable. What's this one? We're always fighting to have this. This is why we have our negative feedback loops. Starts with an H. Homeostasis. We all want homeostasis, right? Despite differences in size, shape, and function, at some point, all cells possess what and a cell membrane? DNA. You could also say cytoplasm, but if it happens to be multiple choice and cytoplasm is not included, then DNA obviously will be your answer, right? Right. Okay, what is used by cells to store the energy required for cellular processes? It's a molecule, and it's part of the Krebs cycle. We talked about it. It is ATP, adenosine triphosphate, right? Different forms of a gene. What do you call different forms of a gene? You might have like a capital A, lowercase a. Remember when we built our dragons? Remember when we created our dragons? What are those different forms of a gene called? Remember? That's alleles. All right, now, if you have structures that have a similar function, but not similar anatomy, like for example, the butterfly wing, the pigeon wing, the bat wing, the insect wing, the function is all flight, right? What do we call those kinds of structures? Those are analogous. What do we call the structures that may not have the same function? Like a cat leg, he walks on the leg, whereas the human uses the arm for other things like, typing or chopping up broccoli for dinner, right? But the structure is the same. What do we call those? Those are homologous. All right, now, relationship between organisms that strive for the same resources in the same place is competition. If you have one species benefiting and the other's not effective, it's commensalism. If you have one benefits at the expense of the other is harmed, that's parasitism. If both benefit, it's mutualism. And if one kills and eats the other, that's predation. Okay, what chromosomes do males typically possess? What do males have? XY, and what do females have? XX, right. All right, look in here. If you were to label these as producer, consumer, decomposer, you're going to have a producer, a consumer, and a heterotroph, right? This one is going to be a decomposer and a heterotroph, and this one's going to be a producer and an autotroph, right? You got to be able to match your DNA and RNA sequences. Remember, with your RNA, there's no more thymine. It's replaced by uracil. So anywhere you see an A where you would typically match with a T, that's going to become a U, right? All right, let's look here. Why are traits controlled by recessive alleles on the X chromosome more commonly expressed in males than females? That's because if you get a bad gene from your mom, you've got no other X chromosome from your dad to cover that allele. So whatever it is going to be expressed. So examples would be color blindness, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, Fragile X. Can a virus reproduce on a surface? No, needs a host, right? Viruses infect by introducing their genetic. That one's not for you. That one's not for you. All right, be sure you know how to label these. Be sure you label that. All right. Okay, your little round ones, your spheres are called cocci. The little ones that look like pills are called bacilli. Those are vibrio if it looks like a comma, spirochete if it's wavy, and corkscrews are spirillum. You don't really need to know those. All right, be sure that you know how to fill out this chart. Your dicots and your monocots. Remember that your monocots have parallel veins and flowers in multiples of 3, that your dicots have branched veins and your flowers in multiples of 4 or 5. Be sure that you could recognize this and complete this diagram if you were to see it. Be sure you can complete your diagram of your flower if you see it. Be sure you can complete a diagram of these organisms, right? Remember, all these answers are available for you. Okay, this was kind of this. Be sure you can do these. So you've got nervous system, endocrine, respiratory, lymphatic, circulatory, integumentary, skeletal, male reproductive, female reproductive, muscular, digestive, and excretory. Don't write urinary, write excretory. Be sure that you can label this correctly and this correctly. Lots of things to label. Okay, be sure you really study your diagrams. Be sure you study this diagram and you really know how to do it, right? Which is an artery, which is a vein? You tell me, what's this one? This one's going to be an artery, and the way you know is the valves are in the vein and the vein's walls are thinner. The walls of the artery are really thick and there's no valves. Be sure that you can do this diagram. Be sure that you could do, this is a heart. right? This shows where blood is coming from. The flow of blood through the heart and the body. Be sure you understand how to do that. Be sure you can identify all of the parts of the male and the female reproductive system. Do you remember these guys? Yeah? Okay, we're going to go over these with the rest of the group when we do sink or swim. Be sure you know these. Be sure that you can identify what's what. Okay? All right. Come on in, gang.